think we can all agree that everybody across the United States and really across the world is struggling because prices for everyday goods and services continue to increase, but they increase beyond what we are seeing as far as wages. This is a huge problem, especially here in the United States. And what is actually happening right now is we are seeing bankruptcies increase. This is something that I addressed about 3 months ago, and I told you that we are going to see bankruptcies rise. We are already seeing auto repossessions. They were coming in much hotter than expected. We knew that was happening. The next step was going to be bankruptcies. This is happening right now. After bankruptcies, the expectation is that it will be foreclosures. Now, I want to address what's going on here, what we are seeing, plus the jobs report that came out this morning. This is also showing signs of slowing. So I want to break down what's happening there and how all of us could be impacted. So all I ask is if you can spend just 2 seconds, go ahead, hit that like button, and let's begin. Now, in a recent report, we now know that what is happening year over year is bankruptcies are starting to increase. This is very alarming. The reason why this is alarming is because bankruptcies, of course, you never want to see a business or an individual go into bankruptcy proceedings. But the reason why this is so alarming is because this shows signs of what is to come for our economy. Like I said, and this is not coming just from me. This is what experts say happen historically, is we have auto loan repossessions. We have bankruptcies. Then we have foreclosures. Those three things come in that order. We've already seen the auto loans, the repossessions. We've seen that happen. It started really the beginning of the year. It actually started last year as well, but it really picked up, it ramped up the beginning of 2023. And now we are starting to see those changes for bankruptcies. The next step is foreclosures. Let me just explain how high bankruptcies have gone. Now, and again, these numbers can throw you off a little bit, but it's the increases, the percentages. That's what we need to keep an eye on. So bankruptcy filings for all chapters, they're up 18% since last February. Commercial Chapter 11 filings are up 83%. Subchapter 5 small business elections, these are up 45%. And individual filings are up 18% as well from last February. Now, we need to address why bankruptcies are rising. Because according to experts, simply due to the amount of money that the people have. What do we have now versus what did we have back in February of 2022? Well, I can tell you this. We do not have the stimulus money like we did back then. It's gone. The federal government is not going to give us another stimulus check. We're also running out of savings and emergency fund money. Just think about it. Right now, our savings rate is pretty much at record lows. But yet our credit card debt is at record highs, which means, especially in a time when the Federal Reserve continues to raise rates, it means that our savings is so low, but our debt is extremely high, and our debt costs more money today than it did last year. That's never a good sign. We also know the job market is cooling down quite a bit. And I will address this in just a minute, but the thing that you need to keep in mind when it comes to the job market or the labor market is that the Federal Reserve is trying to increase rates in order to cool this down. They don't want to see unemployment spike, but if unemployment goes up, that would actually be considered a good thing in the eyes of the Federal Reserve. The only problem is right now it actually went down again. Here's what happened in the latest jobs report that just came out this morning. We saw an increase in 236,000 jobs in March. Our unemployment rate, it dropped to 3.5%. But here's a big one. The average hourly wages went up 4.3% year over year. However, inflation is still over 6%. And so that's where some say we're still running behind. So even though wages are actually ticking up, the problem is inflation is still higher than wages, which means we're actually running out of money. And again, I want to be very clear on this. The increase to bankruptcies wouldn't be such a big issue if Americans were expecting to receive more money. If we knew, okay, we're not coming into a recession, and so chances are companies are going to pay us a little bit extra. If we knew that the federal government is about to send out a stimulus check, we'd be okay. Or if we knew there's other things out there, other forms of relief that we could actually go and get, and it didn't matter if it was for rent or a mortgage or a car payment or nutrition assistance, there was something out there that we could go and get. But that's not the case. Wages, just to give you an idea, wages are expected to increase, but even slower. So not 0.2, 0.3, 0.4% month over month. We're going to see a 0.1, maybe 0.2. That's about it. We're also seeing an 11% decrease in tax refunds over last year. And I talked about this before, how many families, and I know many families do this because I have a few relatives, also have a handful of friends that do this every single year. They let the government pull a little bit too much out of their checks every single week for taxes, because then at the end of the year, they can get some of that money back, and they call this their savings. This is their savings. And they use this money to pay down debt, to get current on their rent or their mortgage. They do different things, which is interesting. And I'm not saying it's a good thing to do, but it's interesting the way that they go about it. But again, it's an 11% decrease in a tax refund over last year. Let's say you were getting $1,000. That's $110 that you are missing over last year. Let's say you get $2,000, which is right about the average. That means it's a $220 decrease over last year. Just think what $220 could do. It could potentially pay off a credit card or pay down a credit card. It could be a 1 month payment for a car. Probably not a new car, being that the average payment for the United States right now is over $700. But you get the idea. We also know food and energy are still hurting millions of Americans. And again, this is causing more people to go and file for bankruptcy. Think about it. If you are struggling because you have an auto loan, you have so many different credit cards, whatever, right? You have all these different payments, and you cannot pay for food, cannot pay for your utilities. You're struggling to just keep up with rent, all because these credit cards and these these debts that you hold, you have to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars every single month into that. So what we are now hearing is that because food and energy are actually increasing and still hurting the American people, this is one of the reasons why many are looking towards bankruptcies. Now, I didn't think this was actually true, and I want to really clarify this and get a little bit more insight. So I decided to ask around. Talk to somebody who they are actually a bankruptcy lawyer. And what they said is yes, they have been getting more calls. Not necessarily new clients or more clients, but they're getting more calls. They're getting more inquiries. That's it. Which makes me wonder, if people are calling an actual attorney, usually that means they've already went through the process of looking on Google. They probably asked friends or families, or they just kept it a secret. And this is probably their next move. So, one thing I can tell you is that, and this is the fact that a bankruptcy for many Americans is considered their only option moving forward. At this point, 2023 is going to be extremely rough. So, I just want to break down what was actually happening. Right now, and again, we've seen this before. We see auto loans and the repossessions. Then we see bankruptcies. The next thing we see, and this will be the big domino that falls, is foreclosures on homes. Okay? So it is all starting Bankruptcies are up. We know the jobs report just came out. It shows signs of slowing as well. So this could be good news if you are looking to invest, but this could be bad news if you are the one filing for bankruptcy and losing some of the things that you've worked so hard to achieve over the past few years. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.